Live actually plays a huge role in your child's health. I'm Rick Volbaum.
And I'm Sean Gables, and we're not just talking about neighborhoods, cities, or even counties. The state you live in determines how many diseases or conditions your newborn baby will be tested for.
Newly updated numbers reveal where Georgia ranks, and Atlanta News First investigator Rachel Polanski has gone through those numbers and has the information you need to know. Rachel.
Yes, so all newborns in the United States are required to undergo a screening, and it looks for conditions that may be hard to spot. Now, Georgia tests for 37 conditions, which may seem like a lot, but let's look at our neighbors here. Florida tests for 57 conditions. Tennessee tests for 67, and Alabama only tests for 31. In partnership with our national team, we wanted to understand the real impact that newborn screenings has here in Georgia and across the country.
You can really see a difference.
For Lisa Brackbill, the day her life changed forever can be traced back to this one photo, a picture showing her wide-eyed baby girl Tori smiling for the last time.
It was truly like a switch had flipped.
It was January 2015 when their happy, seemingly healthy 5-month-old stopped progressing, seemed to be in constant pain, clenching her little fists and crying. 6 weeks after that final smile, a diagnosis, something called Krabbe disease, a rare disorder that would take Tori within a year. As the Brackbills began a baby bucket list, they discovered the disease that ended Tori's life could have been caught in newborn screening. That's the heel prick testing done on babies across the U.S. When Tori was born, Krabbe wasn't on Pennsylvania's screening panel where the Brackbills live, but it was being tested for just over the border in New York.
And if our daughter had been born just 3 hours north, we would be living a totally different story.
The kind of story our national investigative team found because of disparities in newborn screening from state to state that create a tragic phenomenon known as death by zip code, with where you live dictating what babies are tested for at birth. Krabbe, we found, is now included in screenings done in at least 10 states, but it's not yet on a recommended list of tests the federal government wants to be uniform nationwide. Right now, 37 core conditions are recommended by the federal government, but we found not a single state in the U.S. tests for all of them. That's something pediatrician and Congresswoman Dr. Kim Schreier and other lawmakers want to change by 2025.
Whether you get these newborn screens shouldn't depend on what state you happen to live in.
States decide for themselves which testing they'll carry out. They also foot the cost of the work, with some help from the federal government. There's a bill in Congress, the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization Act, which should funnel millions to state screening. But it's repeatedly been held up in recent years because of debate about research using the baby blood samples.
It's incredibly frustrating to the advocacy community because so much is tied to that funding.
The federal funding helps fill the gaps in state budgets and inside state labs that we've learned are already stretched thin. Our national investigative team spent months contacting every state health department across the nation, asking their biggest challenges when it comes to adding new testing. 43 states and D.C. responded. Almost half told us funding and staff shortages are their greatest hurdles. Difficulties finding equipment, lack of lab space, and quality control for testing were also major concerns.
It's very challenging.
Especially for people like Susan Tanksley, who runs the Texas State Lab that handles their newborn screening and knows the difficulties faced by screening programs across the nation.
The families we're serving are incredibly important, so we have to succeed.
Is that an airplane?
Success for moms like Lisa Brackbill, who's watched newborn screening grow and change like her own family, means getting programs the money they need to one day eliminate disparities altogether, closing yet another health divide that impacts our most vulnerable.
And that was Josie Sturman reporting for Atlanta News First Investigates. Meanwhile, the March of Dimes Georgia chapter tells me that when it comes to adding new testing in our state, the biggest challenges include the frequency of the disease as well as funding. Rick?
Now, Rachel, you also talked with a Georgia family who advocated to have Krabbe added to the newborn screening panel here in Georgia. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so I spoke with the Curbo family. They're from Bainbridge, Georgia. And after their little boy was diagnosed with Krabbe, they began pushing Georgia's newborn screening panel to add Krabbe to our state's required testing. And in 2021, Georgia did just that. But it's part of a 3-year pilot program. After that, the panel will decide if Krabbe will be permanently added or taken away from Georgia's newborn screening program. To take a closer look at the Curbo story or any of the statistics that we talked about, you can head on over to AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Rick, Sean?